I say it and let's get into it. Jeremy Swayman. That is going to be the biggest talking point for a lot of people. 98.5 The Sports Hub, releasing multiple videos how the Swayman contract was a terrible idea. And while we all love to look at things in hindsight, 2020, right? Oh man, he played awful this season. That's a terrible deal. Who would you pay? Would you pay the older guy or the younger guy? I would say 90% of this fan base, probably more than that, was all about investing in Swayman because they knew that's the goaltender of the future, or that's what they thought at the time. Now, Swayman has not played good this year, and he's had some flashes, but let's just call it what it is. He is playing like complete dog water. He is terrible this year. There's been a lot of games where he's just underperformed. It looks like he just doesn't even care at points. I think frustration is starting to set in. And while the team in front of him has just looked like pylons at times, so it's not all on Swayman. There is a difference in quality what you get from Swayman and Korpisalo. Now, it's not to such a degree where Korpisalo is looking like a stud out there. I won't say that. The defense is not good with the Bruins. And having a couple of your best defensemen out for extended periods of time, I mean, Hampus Lindholm pretty much not playing most of the season, that is going to impact how you look defensively. Really looking at it, when you go into the deeper analytics, Jeremy Swayman has not been good at all. Isolating just the goaltender performance, it's been very mediocre for Swayman. Do I believe this is what Swayman's going to be for the rest of his career? No. I don't think it's going to be this bad. Maybe he's not the heights we saw with the Toronto Maple Leafs series where he was just unfreaking believable. Maybe he's just going to be an average to above average starter. It does put into, to doubt, is this guy going to be elite? Because that's why you paid him that money. And the salary cap going up, sure, that's going to help things. But it is a genuine question here. Like, can Swayman be the guy that can bounce back here, shake off a really rough year, and return to form? Goaltenders have weird careers. We have seen it in all-star level goalies. They'll have a good year and then a horrendous year, and then they'll bounce back and be in the Vezina conversation. I mean, a goaltender that comes to mind with that would be like a Markstrom, who's been a hot, cold goalie pretty much throughout most of his career once he hit the ground running with the Vancouver Canucks. Goaltender can be a weird position. And while we all want to do the hindsight shit, who are you going to pay? A guy in his mid-20s or a guy in his 30s? And if you say in your 30s, you're lying to yourself. And this isn't to slander Ullmark. I really wanted them to kind of just figure something out, but I did think trading Ullmark was probably for the best because you had a logjam there in net. Now, is Ullmark the better goalie? Yeah, I mean, he was good in Buffalo. He was good in Boston. He's been solid with the Ottawa Senators when healthy. Ullmark is just doing Ullmark things. He can steal you games. He is a terrific goaltender. So, am I surprised with how well he's done with the Senators? No. Could I complain about the return we got on a trade? I mean, yes, I would say that. That is a problem I do have with Sweeney regarding that. Now, let's talk about the last two games and the doo-doo butter that we have seen on the ice. Yeah, the Bruins have not looked good. That's putting it very lightly. But I would also say it should be expected. I mean, there was a lot of trades. You had that 2-game stretch where the Bruins won a couple games, looked good against Tampa. Then after that, looked really damn good as well. They win a couple. And there's some silver lining here. Right? Kostadinov, I like what I've seen from him. I mean, he's looked really good in a spoke B. I like the energy. I like the speed. I like the shiftiness. I just love the hustle from him. So I think that was a nice addition. I really do. I think Middlestat has looked pretty solid as well. I mean, there are some good takes here. The problem currently with the Bruins is, like, we have AHL guys playing at the NHL level. The Bruins already struggled with the decor of having a plethora of third-pairing guys because of all of the injuries that has happened with this defense. So, when you lose more pieces and you're having guys get called up like Ian Mitchell, and this isn't a knock Mitchell, I think he's looked okay in some stretches, but he's not a top tier NHL quality prospect. And some have complained about Mason Lohrei defensively. Listen, I don't know what Mason Lohrei is going to be as a defenseman at the NHL level. I think he's got all of the skills to be a top four guy, especially offensively. I mean, he gives you a lot on the back end offensively. You know, he's a little bit taller. He's got some reach. If he can figure out the defensive side of the game and be more stout in that regard, Lohrei will be a damn good defenseman. But he's young. And playing defense at the NHL level, there is going to be a learning curve. And this is a guy that kind of transitioned to his defenseman. He's figuring things out. Lohrei, I believe, it's going to be a year or two down the road, will be a solid top four guy. I just believe it's there. He's young. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to be a little bit over aggressive. I think at times, because of the lack of offense you see from Bruins, he's jumping up into play a little bit too much, right? And I think it's understandable, but he also has to realize he has to take care of his defensive responsibilities. And I think some of that could, if I'm being honest, trickle down from Hampus and Charlie McAvoy. They can kind of get caught doing the same thing. So it's not just the rookie. I mean, while those two are out, we've seen them kind of jump up into play and put their team in rough scenarios. Losing's a good thing for the Bruins. Them losing gets them a higher draft pick. I want them to be competitive. I want them to fight in this game. I want them to give some of these younger guys a chance and see what you have. And maybe if you go on a run here late in the season and sneak into a playoffs, it won't be the worst thing in the world. But honestly, it is not a bad thing for the Bruins to lose. It is frustrating to watch. I mean, that period where they got outshot in the second, 20 shots to like nothing, was pathetic. But when it comes down to it, the Bruins losing is a good thing. The Bruins not winning these games is actually really good, because then they can maybe slot into a top 8, top 7 draft pick, and then you're able to get a blue chip type prospect that I think the Bruins really need. I'm not saying tank on purpose and just call up all AHL guys, but if the Bruins do lose, it is what it is. The silver lining in that is, okay, we slid down the standings, but hell, now we have a chance of getting a really damn good player that could be impactful in a year or two, maybe a few years down the line. I'll say this, the conversations regarding the whole free agent signings of last offseason of Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. I'll say this. Elias Lindholm has not been good enough. He's overpaid. He wins faceoffs, but he can't give you anything offensively. He's not good enough. For what he's getting paid, he's not good enough. Even with the cap bump, he's not good enough. He's got to at least give you second line center type production, and he really hasn't given you that at all. I mean, what, has he been kind of relegated to a third line type role? That's not good. I would argue that the line mates that are paired with Lindholm definitely impacts his ability to be successful and with his style of play. Maybe a new coach that can come in, can have the Bruins fix some of the offensive woes they have. But regardless, Elias Lindholm has not been good enough. Sure, solid enough two-way, I guess, but he's not giving you enough points. He's just not. And as for Nikita Zadorov, I've never been a Zadorov fan. I've been very public about that on my channel. But when you sign him, and even though I think he's overpaid, but when you sign him, you understand he's just a third-pairing guy. And now, because of the injuries, you're having Zadorov play way too many minutes and be in roles that he should frickin' hell definitely not be in. Of course he's going to get exposed. Zadorov is not an elite defenseman. And anyone that when we signed him thought that, you're smoking crack. There's no way Zadorov is going to be a lockdown number one guy. It's just not. He's a third pairing guy. If he's in your second pairing, you're okay, I guess. But truly, he's a big physical presence that you would love to have in the playoffs in a third pairing role. But when you start to depend on him to be a lockdown guy and play a boatload of minutes, he gets exposed. That's kind of been the resume. That's been the track record on him. Good physical defenseman. But he does have his limitations. So what do I think the Bruins are going to do going forward? How do I believe that they're going to do? Are they going to just be awful for the next few years? Are they going to be able to be back in the playoffs next year? What's my forecast? For me, this is what I think. The Bruins have pieces here. Regardless what you want to think so or not, the Bruins have pieces. McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm, if they can go back healthy, that changes the dynamic on the defense completely. I still think the Bruins should be in the market of maybe acquiring another top four quality defenseman that's in his prime to kind of help out things. So there's a little bit more of an improvement regarding the depth of quality on defense. I think we have a bunch of depth, but just third pairing depth. I think you got Middlestat, Kostinov, and you have other pieces like Matthew Patra. Another offseason, kind of put on some more muscle. We'll see what he does. Kind of have to see what the rookies do, what the AHL call-ups do. Fabian Lysell is an emerging call-up. I mean, will he be worth a shit? We'll see how that pans out. He hasn't been good with the Baby Bees. But you have talent on this roster with David Pastrnak. He's a superstar-level point producer. You have Pavel Zacha, Morgan Geekie, who they're definitely going to retain. If the Bruins can figure out a way to get another line to score points, I just don't believe they're that far away from being a playoff contender yet again. I just don't. I think you add some pieces in the offseason, whether through a trade or through free agency. You add a little bit more of an offensive punch. It gives the Bruins more secondary scoring. And who knows? Maybe one of these young guys come up and really hits the ground running, and it gives you more of that depth scoring. My biggest concern for the Bruins going forward is the goaltending position. I don't think Korpisalo's a starter. Jeremy Swayman has played like a ECHL goaltender this season in a lot of games. So are they going to be good enough in that? That is the question mark. For me, personally, Korpisalo is what he is. I love what I've seen from him, where he essentially stole a point. That being said, he has his limitations. And for me, personally, watching this team, I would rather the Bruins give a guy like a Michael DiPietro, who has some upside, who was an AHL All-Star this year, who's one of the best goaltenders at that level, who has a extremely good pedigree. I love to see them give him a shot at the NHL level next season. DiPietro has outplayed Bussy, and he has just played really well. And I think it's time. I think it's time to give one of these young guys a chance. And DiPietro has done nothing but succeed within the Bruins organization. So, while that might not instill confidence in the Bruins goaltending situation because you're bringing in kind of an unproven guy, I think a Swayman-DiPietro tandem would be fine. And you're hoping that Swayman bounce backs to form. And I would say this, maybe a guy like DiPietro who's hungry, wants to really prove himself, maybe he comes in and is the spark the Bruins need and is good competition for Swayman. They can kind of push each other. Am I claiming that DiPietro's going to hit the ground running and become an NHL All-Star his first year? No. But I do believe he could be an adequate NHL backup. I do. I think the talent is definitely there. I know it's frustrating, Bruins fans. It's been a frustrating season. We've had legends leave the team. Brad Marchand getting traded to Florida. Well, I understood it, and I get the trade. It's definitely a gut punch. He is a guy that's been here for so many years. You trade Charlie Coyle. You move significant pieces all around. And while it sucks, right? It sucks losing these long stays like Coyle, Carlo, and Marchand. It was just a matter of time. The Bruins made some changes that they really needed to make. And while sure, people will complain about some of the returns and some of the trades, but I think for the most part, even though Sweeney gets a lot of crap, I think they were fine. You saw a lot of good returns, and I think a guy like Kostinov and Middlestat, I think they're going to be good in a Spoke B. I really do. I think there's more there. And yeah, I think I'm pretty hopeful on that end. And Fraser Minton, the guy had a natural hat trick down at the AHL level. Oliver Wahlstrom, who struggled in a spoke B. I mean, he has done pretty well with the P Bruins. Maybe him getting his confidence together, he can kind of hit the ground running next year. I think there's talent within the organization. I think there can be more there. That being said, we kind of just got to realize that maybe the next couple of years, they're not going to be the same quality Bruins we've expected where they're Stanley Cup contenders. But all teams go through this, fans. They do. And giving up on being a Bruins fan just through the rough patches, I mean, being a fan is sticking through it. Through the highs and the lows. And I know everybody wants to just be a bandwagon jumper. I get it. That's kind of a new thing in this new age generation. But got to stick it out, boys and girls. It sucks. It's not fun. And I think my hairs are turning gray some of these games I'm watching. But I do believe that it can get better on the other side. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you think about the Bruins? What do you think about the moves? What do you think about the conversation regarding Swayman? All that shit underneath the sun. I appreciate if you drop a like, comment, and subscribe, because if you don't, you just hate me, and you hate success. So, hit the like button if you want. If you don't, well, I really don't give a flying.